Hi, everybody. This is Tina Persson sitting in Copenhagen Metropolitan with two fantastic people in front of me. It's Ofer and Elena. And this is PhD Career Stories, recording an interview. And for those of you that doesn't know who I am, Tina, I'm the founder of the podcast, and we are now recording episode 100 plus. We don't yet, when we are recording now, if it's number 103 or number 104. Let's see. But just a short presentation here now for Ofer and who they are, Ofer and Elena. Well, Elena is a former postdoc from Stanford University. She's now working as a social media and communication advisor for Grit Bio. Super exciting to have you here, Elena. And then we have Ofer, also a postdoc from University of California. He's a co-founder of a company called Genix. And they both have a podcast, bingo. And the name of that podcast is Academia. And this is actually how we met a little bit, I think, because I reached out to Ofer on LinkedIn, and he noticed that I was the founder of a podcast called PhD Career Stories. So we share something, we here all three. We like to help and support PhDs and postdocs to transition to a career beyond academia, or at least learn to know what is beyond academia, what can you actually do with that wonderful work that you have done. So I'm happy to have you here from San Francisco, California. 9 hours. So you have morning and I have soon evening here. I'm excited. Are you excited?
Oh, very much so. Hi, Tina. It's great to be here.
Hi.
Yeah.
Hi, Tina. Very much excited.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited too. So let's now think, what is the topic of today? It's going to be exciting for me to talk about, networking, hidden jobs, and why the digital presence is so important, because this is something I bump into pretty often when I give my workshops and webinars. And that is that many PhDs and postdocs underestimate the value of digital presence, reaching out on LinkedIn and reaching out to ask for help. So I would just like to, which one of you would like to start here to reflect over why is this digital presence such a, maybe not a hot topic, but why is it's not the natural thing for PhDs and postdocs? Elena, would you like to start?
Of course. So it's a good question. I think it goes back to actually social media being a little bit new. So for many people, social media, it's something that's very private, that's very sort of, it's social, but it's not for work. And if you talk about sort of more professional networks like LinkedIn, they conceive it as something that's sort of, this is for the, for the industry, for the professionals that are not scientists, that are not academics. But actually, if you do join LinkedIn and try to find researchers to follow, you will find that a lot of the prominent researchers, I have a few examples here, for example, Sergio Pesca from Stanford, that is very active on LinkedIn, and he can publicize all the very important work he does, the grants that he does, and sort of have the social presence that allows him to be contacted constantly by potential postdocs, by collaborators, by funders, and building this sort of presence online allows him to reach so many more people than if he's just a very successful scientist. Obviously, we can find there are different networks for scientists, like ResearchGate, for example, but it doesn't allow to build this sort of wholesome persona, online persona, the way LinkedIn or Twitter allows. And moreover, there are other options to interact with people, for example, a personal website that also would allow, even just for, I was following this Twitter thread on Twitter by an editor, and he's like, if you don't have a website, it's going to be very hard for me to find you and to know that you have very relevant content and that I can contact you, that I can find you. And I think researchers don't appreciate it yet. And I think now things are starting to change. And I think as long as we build these online communities where people feel comfortable, supported by others to be present online. For example, we manage Science Abroad, an organization for Israeli postdocs, where we have a very large community that sort of very gradually built on and had this sort of push during Corona to have more online presence and really get that support from their community, all of a sudden it's okay to be present. And I think now that they sort of feel supported in the group, within sort of a closed community, now they feel more comfortable sort of stepping up and sort of building that online persona that allows for many sort of reaching out to, to many potential, as I said, collaborators or workers or anything, everything. We had on the podcast Oded Rehavi, for example, he's very active on Twitter. And he built this whole community. I think researchers that have no idea what he actually, or had no idea what he actually studies, they don't follow him specifically because of what he researches. But now they have a community that he can spread ideas about, being supportive of in the academic world, sort of building up the academic world in a better way. And he built this community that follows him and sort of interacts with him and supports him, founded, conferences, online conferences, and so on and so on. So this online presence allows researchers to reach out to many more people and do very fantastic things.
Yeah, it's a great, Peter. And Ofer, what would you like to add, or your opinion?
So I think that why there is no engagement in professional engagement, okay? Because every one of us has like its professional persona that he presents outside, and it starts when we are like somewhere maybe in the late stages of a bachelor's degree, master's degree, and for sure when first years of graduate school, and afterwards when you're a professor. So your professional persona is not incentivized. You don't have an incentive to put it out there in professional networks. Why? Because you're measured by, at least in academia, how many grants you put in. And grants are a result of how many publications you have. Publications are not social media. They're like a one-time singular event in space and time, which is very unique, by the way, and very hard to measure. It's easier to spot a black hole than to get a Nature publication, but never mind, put it aside. There is no incentive to really reach out, and it has to come from within. And I mentioned that Oded Rehavi, who it came from within, and he put a very specific layer of his professional persona out there, not specifically the science one, although the science is present, but it's a wholesome one. It's mentorship. It's how academia works in general and stuff like that. So I think that once, and you start to see this like with outreach clauses in NIH grants in the US, you have to have an outreach, and it puts you in a better position to get an academic position if you've done some outreach. But the definition of an outreach should be expanded. And another thing, I think the first time I realized that you need to put yourself out there professionally is when you go, when you see the publication world, which is very, very important again to the academic world, and you go to the latest stage of this world, which is bioRxiv, medRxiv, this open access, just put your paper out there in the internet, in the World Wide Web, and let people noodle on that. It's unedited. It's not from any publication house. It's nothing. It's just like your best science paper. Immediately when it's ready, you just put it out there. And when you scroll down, there is a Twitter feed, and this is amazing. This was my first time of understanding. Oh my God, I'm not on Twitter. Like how much I'm missing. Like people are putting their best science on like in almost real time. You don't have to wait like 2 years for something to get published. You're done, it's there. And
I know researchers that follow Twitter to get updates on science. And they don't need to follow, PubMed anymore because all the key opinion leaders are there, and then they will highlight.
Yeah.
They will highlight what's important.
Yeah.
I get more interesting papers from the bioRxiv and medRxiv Twitter feed than I get from my Google Scholar. which is
yeah, that's true. But you know, it's not only science. You know, this is, you know, the outreach on Twitter and LinkedIn, because when I meet them in webinars and I say, you know, you're looking for a career now beyond academia, and basically, if you're not on LinkedIn, you somehow don't exist. It's very hard to say so,
Exactly.
but you somehow don't exist. And the challenge is that I can't find you. And you need to learn to handle and use the algorithm. You need to actually start to have a profile and fail with that profile, and, you know, change your profile, learn how it works. And it's too late when you're looking for opportunities. You should start very early with it. And you can have in the beginning a profile on LinkedIn that's very scientific, but you need to change it when you start to rebrand you for your next career step. And this is something I have a hard time to explain, I realize. And I've been thinking a lot, and I'm interested to hear whether you can agree or maybe speculate about what I think it could be, that as a scientist, because I've also been a scientist, you know, it took a while for me to step out of that kind of selling myself. There was something when I was an assistant professor that you don't use the phone, you don't sell your science, they should come to you. And this is, of course, very tough when I'm looking for a career beyond academia, where I actually have to reach out. I have to communicate with people that I don't know. So it is this, it's not, as a scientist, we are not allowed to sell ourselves.
Yeah, I remember having that feeling when I, at some point we moved from Israel to Boston. I was after my master's and I was looking for a job. And my husband just started an MBA. So he was all into networking and they were all chatting all the time. And everyone, you know, he specifically, but his friends were like, okay, you have to start networking. And I used to say, I don't need to network. You know, I have a master's from Weizmann Institute. I know all these sort of methods. My networking skills are irrelevant for my science skills. And until I started networking, I didn't find a job. So it's you have to put yourself out there, because no one's going to find you unless you make yourself available and reachable and start reaching out to yourself. I think it goes back to the fact that we all learn from our mentors. And I don't know how about you, Ofer, maybe it's a bit different, but for me, all of my scientific mentors up until this point, I think most of them don't have a LinkedIn account, definitely don't have a Twitter account. If they have a Facebook, it's definitely private. So sort of you live up in the academia where you don't have anyone to learn from. And then you step out into the world of, as you say, sort of beyond academia. So you don't have anyone to learn from and to say, you know, this is a successful account. This is how it should look like. And when you have a successful account, you will feel more comfortable reaching out to other people, because they will know who, you know, who's approaching them, that they can approach you in return, and so on. So I think it's really this thing that you end up, you know, after a PhD or after a postdoc, you've been a really long time in a specific setting that none of it was relevant. Although I would say it's relevant, but the perception is that it's not relevant. So I think, yeah, it takes you a long time to realize what others are doing that helps them to build their careers. And you just didn't have an example until you decided that you look out for one.
Yeah, I think that I got two perspectives on this. The first one comes from my wife. My wife is in tech. We met in our bachelor's degree. So she did like a science bachelor in biology with me. She hated it. She never want to go back to the lab again, which is understandable. This is what she wants to do. And she's in tech. And in tech, it's like for her, like LinkedIn, for sure. It's like, that's the way to get a job. That's the way to make yourself visible. You actually make prepare your resume according with your LinkedIn. So it has to be linked together. And yeah. I saw that and I didn't understand the value of this. And I said, okay, this is not effective. It took me a long time and moving halfway across the world to understand that I have to make it present. And I owe the other half of this journey, I owe to my mentor for my PhD. When I looked for a PhD mentor, I looked for someone who's not just like the best in their field, because I chose like a field that was, you can say, less sexy, but very important, like deafness genetics. But I looked for a mentor who is more than a scientist. And really, Professor Karen Avram from Tel Aviv, she changed my life, and we're still friends. It's more than mentorship than today. But in the aspect that she said, I'm a professor. I'm not down in with the nitty gritty science that you do on the bench. It's not me. But I will put you with the best people out there, and I can teach you how to play the academic game. What are the rules? What are the boundaries? How you can play around. I teach you politics, and I think at the point that I understood that I don't want to go into academia, she said, okay, then now you need to expand your game. Now you need to reach out to other people, because you can look around everywhere inside the university and all the academic space, like specifically, let's say in Israel, and you won't find the answers. You need to reach out, and one of the tools you need to reach out is make yourself present. You need to make yourself visible, and we actually found out together how to make ourselves visible. We opened like a Twitter account for the lab. We went on all kinds of professional networks, and then we talked about like scientific conferences, which is I guess the only option you have for an outreach, or like in-person outreach. And how passive is it? Like, you give a talk and you expect people to come just based on a 200-word abstract that is, sorry, but from a 100 abstract booklet. Why should my pop out? Why someone will come to my talk, to my poster? It's very passive. You don't sell yourself. You don't put yourself out there. You don't make yourself extremely interesting. Like all the titles are very, I'm sorry, very boring. There's nothing about there's no clickbait in science, right?
You don't sell clicks, no.
Maybe there shouldn't be.
No, but you need to have this initial interest, something to excite people, and then they will read a bit further, and you see, that might be interesting. I'm gonna go there. Or you maybe approach people and say, listen, I'm giving a talk in this conference. I would love you to come. I would love your insight. Just hear me out. Tell me I'm talking complete, it's complete, sorry, bull, okay?
Yeah, it's bull.
But just hear me out. Come, hear me out. Maybe we can have a coffee later, something like that. Be very active. It's missing. And I think those are things that when we reach out to people, we need to work on this as scientists, and we need the role models to do this. We need people to push us to do it.
I can hear a lot of things. I have written down a lot here. I think, we need 1.5 hours here. I know we don't have that time, but you have pointed to many things that I have reflected a lot over, because when, I was in academia, it was this kind of passive way of going to conferences. The professors speak and we are listening, and then some polite questions. And it's very old fashioned. It's not interacting actually. And then I came to industry, and it was not like that. It was much more engaging, small groups, and I had to work. And in the beginning, I was irritated because they expected me to work and interact. I couldn't just sit and listen. And now when I do my workshops and when I, try to organize things, I like things to be much more in this kind of mind groups where people must interact and share. So we train that. So I think that's a good behavior for career events, because this is also an issue I learn when PhDs and postdocs go and like to start to network. They're not trained to reach out and ask questions and say, do you know what? I don't know this, but I know this, because we are trained to be experts. So we don't want to expose ourselves somehow not to be experts. And that feeling I can really relate to. But stepping out of that, because why are we sitting here? And that was something you have touched to. That is what we need to reach out. You have both said it a lot. But to give our listeners something to get in facts, the reason we are here discussing Ofer, Elena, and I is because I reached out on LinkedIn. And I would say that this podcast here is an accident. Yeah, because I call it the accident factor, that I send out roughly, I don't know the exact number, 250 emails.
Oh, wow.
250. And out of these 250, 25 something accepted, and that turned out to, in the end, 100 accepted my invitation. Ofer, you were one of them. Then, I think I sent another email and I asked for a short chat. And from those, maybe 100, let's say I have 5 chats with people, and Ofer, you is one of them. And now I'm super, you are one of them, So now I need to ask Ofer, why did you accept? Because to help the listeners here now, you send out an email, you accepted, and you clicked on that Calendly link all the way from California. You didn't know me, because that's why we're here. Why did you do that?
First of all, I think that as far as I remember, and I looked at the conversation before over email and the LinkedIn chat. It was interesting. So it was like, hi, this is me. This is what I do. I would love to chat. So first of all, this approachability is someone likes to chat with me. And when you study down the statistics, most of what was going through my mind is that, wow, I think that's the first time in my life that I'm in the top percentile. That feels so great. And that feeling of making someone else, when you approach them, feel wanted, that you approach someone and someone wants to talk with me? Sure. Of course. People love to talk about themselves. I can talk about stuff. Please stop me if I talk too much, okay? But people want to talk about themselves. People want to talk to other people. I think 2020 just make it more put a larger emphasis on that we need this human interaction, preferably in person. But I think she wants to talk to me. We share interests, and it's not a complete overlap. She does something else. This is her career path. It's very interesting. I would love to hear what she has to say. I would love to hear what she wants to ask from me. What click. It's nothing. It costs me nothing.
Costs you nothing. Yeah.
Yeah. I just click it, and what is the worst that could happen? We've both wasted 30 minutes plus 5 minutes of some texting over LinkedIn. Okay. In the large scheme of things, that's okay. It's a good investment. Yeah.
And now I want the listeners, just before Elena, you come in here, but I want the listeners to listen what Ofer did. That is what people do on LinkedIn. If you reach out, there's always people are going to click on you and have a chat with you. Yeah. Elena, you was up to something.
Yeah, I wanted to say, so as I pointed out, that we volunteer for a large, now it's a large nonprofit organization for scientists, and we have this online group, and you can see that people want to help. For any question that comes up, when people feel that they're comfortable, they would support, they would always hop on a call, they would sort of share their applications, their sort of documents that they worked on, so that they can help other people. And I think in realities, people want to help, and people want to share their experience and help people. If it helps one person do something with their careers or their work, why not? And I think, for going back to your interaction on LinkedIn, I think as long as both of your profiles are well sort of done, sort of, it has all the information, you don't know Ofer, but you know why you're reaching out to him. You've seen his profile, you understand who you're reaching. And for him to accept your invitation, he needs to understand who you are and why. At least imagine why you're approaching him, and sort of understand what's going to happen. Maybe you'll surprise him, but for him to answer, he needs to sort of have some kind of concept of what's going on. And for that, as we talked in the beginning, you have to have this sort of well-characterized profile on LinkedIn, so people know who you are, what you're interested in, what your skills are, and sort of who is approaching them and what might they be interested in doing. And once you have that on both sides, the conversation will be so much easier. And I think it goes back to sort of reaching out to others. If you have a well-characterized profile, you can reach out to anyone, because they will immediately understand why, or sort of have an idea of why you're approaching them, and what could come out of that conversation.
And now you pointed out, and this is something I have in here, because this is, again, I'm really excited now, because this is, I like to hear what you think now, because we come to this profiling of your LinkedIn profile. And that is, of course, when I'm a coach, my clients come and they say, oh, I need my resume, I need my LinkedIn profile. And I say, do you know what? Less is more, because if you don't know where you are going, it's very hard to actually write a resume and a LinkedIn profile. So then it's better to start to have a little bit less, and then a powerful headline, nice picture. Yeah. And then please remove looking for a new job, because if I start to connect and people say, oh no, it's another job seeker. You see, that is not connecting. That is not, asking for help. That's to ask for help for the wrong reason, because we are out for connecting and asking for information. Because people, as you said, Ofer, lovely here, people love to talk about themselves. So if I don't know what Ofer's job is about, I connect with Ofer. I can just simply say to Ofer, okay, Ofer, you seem to have a great job. I just would like to have a chat with you, what your daily day look like. Yeah. Could you help me to understand what you actually are doing? And you would help me. And then by listening to Ofer or Elena, I can, oh no, it doesn't sound really like the job I like to have, or I get excited. Yeah. So what do you think? This kind of stuff here on your LinkedIn profile, open for opportunities, I think it says. I'm not a big fan.
Yeah, no, I heard also advice to remove it. And I think that's mainly because, as I said, when you're reaching out, I'm looking on your profile and I'm trying to gauge of what you're looking for, what this interaction is about. Even if you write something specific, I still, but just by looking at your profile, I'm going to gauge on what this could bring to. And if you say that you're open for opportunities or looking for a job, then I immediately feel pressured. And knowing that, okay, I will need to help her find a job. I'm not sure I can do that. Like, I'm not,
exactly,
even if I work in a very exciting company, maybe I can't make the introduction, or maybe I don't want to. I don't want to make, introduction for people that I don't know. So I think that puts a lot of pressure on people when you sort of reaching out to someone and it says on your profile that you're looking for opportunities, you put them on guard. And instead of putting them on guard, you need to make it very sort of open that they would want to, as Ofer said, talk about themselves and not necessarily think about what you need from them. Exactly. And honestly, if you had a nice chat and you shared some sort of, you seem like a likable person, then they will help, gladly help you out if they can, right? But you shouldn't push that from start.
Now you put them under pressure, and I'm coming to Ofer here because you said it, Elena, here, and I liked. We should find something to share with people. So I said, why don't you share, spare time interest, things that you like to do? I mean, it could be mountain biking or fitness or, being a photographer or, so we show a little bit more about ourselves, because we tend to connect with people because we find something that we can start to talk about naturally.
Yeah, my husband did. Sorry, I'll just tell that story. My husband was doing McKinsey interviews, and his bottom line is sort of his hobbies. And one of his hobbies was Go, sort of this Chinese game. And he spent a whole interview at McKinsey talking about that game. And, if it was not there, it would never come to it. And it just was a very successful interview. So having that something in common is very important. Go ahead, Ofer.
Yeah, I think that me and Elena, we're a great example for that. Like, we met, like, if we would have to meet professionally according to our research interest, it would never happen. Never happen. We're from different fields. We will never be in the same conference. We will never read each other publication because the field is too large and you have limited amount of time. So it's our volunteer work in Science Abroad that that connected us together, and then we started talking, and then we I admired what she did with the Facebook group and building a community, and it was amazing. And because I'm really a people's person, I'm really find great value in being a member of a community, and one thing led to another, and now Elena is the, aside from my wife, the person I send most messages over, like to, and I talk a lot, and she's not in my lab. We like in the last year, we mostly met through Zoom. We met like a couple of times, although we live very nearby. So I think when you reach out to people, and this circling back to like, who should I reach out to? How do I find those people who are like, who can like expand my circle of interest or my perspective in the future? I think that if you put this "I'm looking for a job" tag on LinkedIn, you're joining the race a bit too late.
Yeah,
you need to start earlier. You need to start by, again, reaching out to people that are like, you can say, outside of your comfort zone. If you're like I'm a molecular geneticist, so I won't reach through LinkedIn just to molecular geneticists. Yeah, I know them. Okay, I read their papers. We get connected. But if I want to talk to someone and understand how his day-to-day looks like, and if his scientific or professional interests are my interest, then I need to talk to someone outside my pond. At some point in academia, if you're a small fish in a big pond, you grow, and you outgrow your pond. You need to either expand the pond or move to another one. And this is outreach. This is why you need to expand. You need to go to people outside of, like, talk to people outside of your comfort zone and find them. Some should have some overlap. So outside interests is like Go, which now I know that Elena's husband is into, and I really want to understand this game, then I will bother him on that. Go, for me, it's sports analysis. I love soccer. Okay, so I just reach out to people who do sports analysis. That's it. I want to talk to you. And I had a beautiful conversation with the Liverpool head data analysis just about how sports data science works, how he got there, what it does. That's it. I'm not going into, I would love to, but I'm not going into sports data analysis. But I know of, and I have a connection. I feel now much more comfortable asking him more questions and reaching out farther into that pond, into that like cycle.
Yeah, I love to hear that, because I have two things I have to share with you here now, and that, for those of it doesn't know, but one of those things that I really love to do is puzzles. I do puzzle, and I didn't know. Okay, that's maybe a bit nerdy, but suddenly I started to talk about that. Oh, you also love it. And then, what kind of puzzles, and, how we start the puzzles, what is the strategy, how long time it takes, and etc., etc., etc. And, we talked about that. And then suddenly, okay, what was the topic here actually about? It was not really about puzzle, was it? But this is also how you can start to talk with someone that you don't know. And I nailed my first job. I for some reason just wrote in my CV, that was not very good CV, but I wrote it in a 2-page CV, that I was a Swedish champion for veterans on 400 meter. And for those of you that maybe know me, know that I went from assistant professor to recruitment. And the problem I had, or the challenge I had, was to motivate why I could be a good salesperson, because sales is super important in recruitment. And I tried as good as I could, my parents are in sales and etc. But the reason I got the job was that they, behind the doors, had said, well, she's a Swedish champion on 400 meters, so she obviously knows how it is to set up goals and to reach it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that just shows another expansion of yourself, which too many scientists are afraid to put in the public, which they should do on LinkedIn and tweet about things. You say this Liverpool thing, sometimes share something on which is your interest, even though it's a very nerdy interest, because, that's what we talk about when we are nerds, isn't it? Yeah. Show it.
Definitely.
We talk about reaching out. If you like to share some tips, to the listeners who are sitting thinking, oh no, my comfort zone and how to start, that kind of feeling, we know it's a reaction. Yeah. How come? Yeah. Yeah, Elena, please.
Yeah. No, I wanted to say that we had an episode with John Camerons from, she used to be a CEO of Adgin, now I know she left, but it was a fantastic episode where she had all of this sort of very useful advice about communication and about networking. And I think she said very wisely is that networking is not about reaching out to complete strangers. If you start building networks by volunteering, by doing something that's important to you, by, having some kind of a hobby that you sort of, you put your heart and soul and you sort of expand your network that way. So there are all kinds of ways to expand your network. And for example, we volunteer for Science Abroad. We actively write in the Science Abroad group. So now there are about 4,000 people that come into the group and know us and sort of have this feeling of familiarity, that they understand a little bit about us because they've seen us write things. They know what we think about specific topics. They know what we are good at or what we can help with. So once you build this a little bit, sort of expand your network by volunteering or by doing something else, you have this feeling of familiarity, and then you can reach out to people much more easily. So you're not connecting to a stranger, you're connecting to someone that you chatted with or sort of had some kind of interaction with. Maybe you volunteered and did a conference, scientific conference, or maybe you sort of, you had a large collaboration with, or someone that there are all kinds of ways to sort of expand your network and not just be inside your lab or inside your job, but rather sort of expand your networks. And once you do that, it's going to be easier for you because you're not reaching out to strangers. And that sort of network will allow you to build further because, for example, now we've spoken, now we know a little bit each other, Tina. Yes. So if I'll see on LinkedIn that you know someone that's very interesting to me, I'll feel much more comfortable saying, Tina, I've seen this person. Would you mind connecting us? I think, this could be useful. And you know me already. And yes, you don't know everything about me, but you know a little bit about me to feel comfortable to say, yeah, sure. Lena, I had her on my podcast. Would you mind sort of speaking to her and help her out with something? So when you expand your networks by volunteering, by doing some kind of project, by sort of being part of larger communities, you build on that, sort of you build those steps, and then you don't need to reach out to strangers anymore. You don't have that anxiety of reaching out to a person that has nothing to do with you except maybe a well-written LinkedIn account.
Yeah. I like before, and I come back to you, Ofer, here on the next one, because I like to challenge the listeners a little bit more. Some of the people I'm coaching, they have 50 connections on LinkedIn. 50. And I said, that's a little bit little. So do you know what? I think you just have to press the bottom and start to, connect, and not really, you need more people in the network actually to, find people at all. And I tell them you can connect with me because in my network, you can connect with people. Try to connect with people with big networks. So if we go back and I say here that if you're going to reach out to people that you don't know, it's okay to do that. But if I now put it this way here, that don't be disappointed if they don't connect with you. It's not a failure. And how do you feel here now? If you connect with someone, I connected with you, we don't know each other. I feel today much more comfortable, and it's actually only the second time we meet. Yeah, we are building a relationship. So I like to come and say like this: we talk too much networking. We should say, learn to know new people and build new relationships. What do you think?
Definitely. And I think there is, for this person with 50 connections, I think this is an indication of either being too critical of those people are not in my circle and they will not benefit, a connection with them will not benefit me, or being afraid. Okay, so either you're being too critical of reaching out, or you're just being afraid that they won't interest you, or that you're being afraid that you won't interest them. Okay, so let it go. But when you reach out, you need to have, and I think Lena just alluded to that when she talked about like when we volunteer in science, about it's easier to reach out to people when you have a framework. Just everyone can choose their own framework. It's a community you volunteer in. It's I don't know, God forsake, a podcast you started, all kind of like excuses, reasons. My name is Ofer. Leave alone the science I do and what I did in my life. I reach out to you because I'm interested in your story and I have this podcast and I would love to bring it forward. Or when I moved to the US and I had this culture gap to bridge between the Israeli culture and the US culture, which is, by the way, completely different. And I looked up at UCSF, those framework that will allow me to do so. And there was like a grassroots group for students to reach out from academia to industry. And I said, wow, this is a great opportunity to reach out outside of this UCSF culture. But coming back to this person who's been either too critical of who is connecting with or afraid to connect with people, when you do that, you need to, I think, and at least this is what I do, you need to, first of all, decide to which level. I'm Ofer. I don't have a vast experience in industry, and I'm a scientist of a certain level. I'm not a professor. I'm not a grad student. I know my value. Okay. Now, who do I reach out? Do I reach out Illumina's CEO, or I reach out a biotech CTO or product manager, which is more like an eye level kind of connection? Yeah, if you set yourself, if you reach for the stars, you might snag like a falling star or meteorite, and it's amazing. But you need to either aspire but keep it real. Loads of them will not respond, or expand your circle, but keep it in the level that is relevant for you. If you want to transition from academia to industry, then you need to, first of all, your first year of reaching out, of networking, should be at people who are at not an entry-level position, but a level above, okay? That you can learn from their transition and like a simulation or first couple of years in industry. So I do encourage, reach out, but keep it real. Keep it real. Choose a framework or make your framework. I have loads of different examples of how you make a framework for make yourself visible. And we had this talk, Elena, with Elena from that is not at the current time of recording, is not public yet. Yeah.
It's on the way. It's a baby.
It's a baby, yeah. And she mentioned that a key thing in industry when you transition is high visibility. There are high visibility roles. You come in, it's not just doing your work, it's making yourself presentable, and something that we don't do. And we have the opportunity to do this by, one example is LinkedIn.
Yeah, and also training on it. You train on LinkedIn to feel more comfortable. You realize that even though you have a great LinkedIn profile, not many people look at it. So you need to do things. So this is, again, what I recommend, that if you listen here now, you are a PhD, you don't have a LinkedIn profile, start early. Because when you look for the job, when you want to transition, and it's not too late, it's never too late, but it's really, it takes a while before you have let's say, a LinkedIn profile and the amount of connection, so you can use the network, if you put it that way.
Yeah. So one way, for example, people look at the network is that, for example, by now, I don't have that many connections. I think I have around 800 connections. But by now, I don't think any relevant person that would approach me would not have some kind of a mutual contact with me. 1, 2, maybe, third level, but some degree of connection will be there. And that will make me feel more comfortable with the person approaching me to say, okay, he's not spamming you. He doesn't want something weird. There's a really good chance that what he wants from you is relevant. So by building a network, but not, as Ofer said, not a random network. You don't just connect with random people. You connect with people that it makes sense to connect with. So either you can start small. You can start with sort of scientists, people on your floor below you, sort of someone you've seen in the halls, someone you read his paper, some company, sort of people that work in a company that sort of does something that's interest to you, and gradually build this sort of network of stepping up who you connect with. And some people, people you worked with that were in your class, that's very natural. You don't need a reason to connect with. But if you are trying to connect with someone you completely don't know, but you, for example, as Ofer said, want to learn about their company, then you would need, to work a bit harder, introduce yourself, tell them why you're reaching out, because it's not going to be very natural for them. If you're, as I said, if they have 50 connections, they probably don't have anything mutual. So it will be strange for them that people would reach out to them that they don't know at all, they don't have anything common with. So do this step by step, expanding your network as you go. And as you said, work on it before, because if you start to do it when you start your PhD, 5 years later, you already have an established networks where everyone you worked with, everyone you've seen in the halls, everyone that are doing research that's relevant to you, everyone that are sort of doing something connected to you, you already have the connections with. So 5 years later, you're ready to go. You already know you're interested in some kind of a field or company, and you search it up on LinkedIn, you already find mutual connections that are relevant, and you can reach out to those people much more easily. So I definitely...
And I think that when you do this in the beginning of your PhD, it's the yin to the I'm looking for a new job yang. Okay, it's the exact opposite, because when you start your PhD, it's stress-free. Everybody see in your LinkedIn, he's a PhD student. He has like 5 years before you look for a job. Let's just chat with him. That's going to be completely casual. Maybe he does like a cool science or he has like something going on in the lab. It's exactly the time that you have the like mental capacity to reach out and expand your views on the professional world. And people are like, oh, he's a PhD student. He's like, quote unquote, I'm doing like in quote unquote air quotes, it's like he's harmless. Okay. he's not looking for something from me right now. Okay, so let's talk. Why not?
Why not? It comes very natural. Yeah. And now I'm probably, because we're coming to an end here, so I listen how you guys build your network. Now I'm going to shock you here how I have done it. And I, as I said, I think my account LinkedIn is from 2004. And I worked as a recruiter and a headhunter. And you know what? We just connect. And that is, I didn't have time even to write a message, because when they said, Tina, you're going to recruit now within engineering. Oh my God, engineering. So I needed to start to connect with potential candidates in engineering, obviously, And then suddenly they moved me over to IT. And then, oops, I don't have a networking IT. So I had to start to connect with people in IT. But I relied on my profile a little bit. Yeah, that they would be...
Because they know why you're connecting them, right?
Probably because they know where I'm connecting. But then, I went and I wanted to expand my network now in the United States. And I thought, okay, it's just time to start to connect again. So you can start to connect, and sometimes I write a message, but sometimes not. It kind of depends. But I usually recommend, when you need to build very fast, that connect with 5 people per day, because 5 people you make templates, short templates. I like to broaden my network within. You don't need to write more, because I like to broaden my network. That's very nice. And you 5 people per day, that would be, if you only take it Monday to Friday, it's 25 per week, yeah. And that is actually 100 per month. And in 1 year, that's pretty many people that you had started to add in. So it doesn't have to be so dramatic.
Right.
And I think, this more relaxed attitude to it. So I think it's really good advice we get here. Start early, as Elena and Ofer said, and start to connect with the people you know, so you build confidence. And then you can start to challenge yourself. Yeah. And you don't need to be a master in writing a novel to write this. I like to broaden my network in. We are coming to an end here now. I think it's absolute time is running too fast when I have you here. I would have loved to go chat to you. I have some more questions, but we skip them here because I like you both to end the podcast, and to our listeners here now, what you would like some tips, 1 or 2 tips for people listening here now. They are sitting scared of reaching out from the comfort zone, this digital presence, LinkedIn, they feel the pressure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What is your sharpest tip you would like to tell these people? Why they should be on LinkedIn, why they should have a digital presence, and what the first good step could be to be a master in 5 years?
I think of what I can say is start early, and we came to this point a couple of times through this conversation, and I think just let go of the notion that a lot of us in the academic world has this imposter syndrome. We're not interesting enough. We're very well accomplished. I can only contact people when I have my nature paper. Just let it go. It's not true. People would love to talk to you. Just reach out. And what is the worst that could happen? You won't get a response. Okay, so 100 times you won't get a response, and 2 times you will. And it's going to be interesting, and it's going to spread out. Reach out. If you wanna start by reaching out to someone familiar, my LinkedIn account is completely public. You're more than welcome to send me a message, and we can chat. If you think I'm interesting to you and you want to chat me further, sure, why not?
Ofer, you say the one line is let it go. Just do it. Yeah. And Elena.
Yes, I think what helped me to start my LinkedIn account was to upload my CV. That gave me a lot of sort of content to share immediately, where I did not have to think about it that much. I just put there what I did during my PhD, any kind of jobs I had before. That made me more comfortable with the profile that I have. And obviously with time, I improved it. I sort of added details that I found interesting. I highlighted some things that I wanted to. But at first, just to have content, as we said, if you're reaching out to someone, you have to have a profile that represents you in some way. So as you said, have a good picture, have a good sort of, tagline, but also have some content there. So if you don't know where to start with your CV. Just put out there, list by list, what you've done. That's already going to give someone that you're reaching out to a picture of who you are. And then I'm going to, I don't think we've put here this term, but in here in the Valley, it's called informational interview. So if you want to learn about a job, as you said, and you want to sort of understand about a potential career path, and you've listened to all the podcasts and sort of know all the different positions, but you want to ask your own specific questions, ask them for an informational interview. Then they will know that you're not looking for a job, but rather you want to understand what you're doing, what they're doing, how their job looks like, what other connections they can connect you with, and end that discussion with who else should I talk to? Who else is interesting? And they will gladly, think up of sort of someone else that's doing a job that's similar, or a job that's relevant to what you discussed, and maybe found out that what they're doing is not that interesting, but they know someone that is doing something that is interesting. And use that network to sort of, to go from point to point. That's the point of networking, is that when you connect to one point, you connect to the points that they are connected to. So end a conversation with who else should I talk to? And that's going to put you forward in your search of a job or a collaboration or anything you're interested in, or just building your network for whenever you're going to be actually looking for a job.
So what I hear from Elena, if I take it, you said something, you put words on something that we have been on a little bit, informational interview. Reach out, ask for help. It's okay. You don't need to know everything. It's okay to ask, you have an interesting career. I'm really impressed. what does a daily day look like? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
okay. So thank you very much, Ofer and Elena. It's been absolutely fantastic talking with you. Great tips you have shared. And I'm quite sure that you listeners now are going to sit down here and open your computer and start connecting. At least I think you should connect with both Ofer and Elena. You should connect with me on LinkedIn. We will say yes to that, won't we?
Absolutely.
So
Definitely.
thank you very much. And this is Tina Persson reporting from PhD Career Stories. See you soon. Bye.